Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Robo Celestial here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 6 of What If Deku Had the Sharingan. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. The adrenaline and stress of the situation swept over Izuku's body and devoured him. By the time he realized he was moving, his body was in a full-on sprint. Midoriya's thoughts were running a mile a minute, everything seemed to slow down. He felt tougher, faster. Was his perception better? When had he activated his quirk? Was the adrenaline pushing him to this point? No. It probably played a small part in it, but this was something far more. Did his quirk get stronger? It didn't matter. Izuku put his questions aside. A villain was reaching for one of his classmates. Midoriya reached the hand villain in a matter of seconds. Katsuki wasn't too far behind in getting to his own target. Almost simultaneously, Bakugo landed on the fog-shrouded villain, and Midoriya sent a punch sailing towards the hand-draped one. A blur of black had caught his attention. Izuku thought for a moment, just for a moment, that the hulking creature of a man torturing Izawa might have moved from towards him. Midoriya brushed it off, thinking that couldn't have been right. His eyes didn't deceive him though, the bird-faced creature had intercepted his attack. The beast was undisturbed by Izuku's punch, there was no indication that it had even felt the strike. Frazzled by the situation, Midoriya hesitated. It took hold of Izuku's arm, and he looked the thing in the eyes. Dread completely encompassed Midoriya, stripping him of his surroundings, his senses, his entire existence. It was only a few seconds, and an eternity all at once. The monster wasn't even on his mind anymore, just its eyes. He never heard the screams of his classmates. Their concern, fear, and warnings didn't exist where he was. It lifted Deku by the arm and aimlessly flung him into the water, practically ripping his arm off in the process. He couldn't process the pain. He was too consumed by his emotions. He wanted to scream. He needed to scream. No one heard the primal, all-encompassing, silent scream he let out. No one saw the way his face contorted from fear in unimaginable ways. No one felt the crushing reality he had. Those eyes were so devoid of life, of anything. He might as well have been staring into complete oblivion. He didn't feel it when he hit the water. He didn't know that was when he passed out. He'd never know. Izuku woke up hours later in Recovery Girl's office to the sight of a stone-faced, puffy-eyed Katsuki and a lanky, deathly-looking blonde man. Prompted by Midoriya asking, Bakugo explained what happened. Izuku's body smacked into the water and caused it to erupt and rain back down. The villain Midoriya tried to attack, Shigaraki, commanded the one that threw him, Nomu, to go after Kaken. All Might busted through the doors of the USJ at that moment. The hero announced his presence to everyone before speeding to save Katsuki and the others faster than any of them could see. Once they were a safe distance away, he instructed the students to take Eraserhead and Izuku to the entrance. They explained the known quirks to the pro, along with the insane power the Nomu had. All Might bolted back to the group of ne'er-do-wells to continue their bout. His fight with Nomu led to him getting grabbed and dragged into a portal so he could be cut in half. If not for Todoroki's sudden appearance and him freezing the creature, All Might would have been done for. Their battle of Titans continued once All Might broke free from the Nomu's grasp and escaped the portal. Bakugo proceeded to rocket back to the action as the fight continued. He attempted to recapture Kurogiri, but it quickly devolved into an impossible game of tag for the boy. All Might eventually sent his opponent crashing through the dome of the USJ. With steam erupting from his body, he told the villains off to stall for time. The villains fled with threats of vengeance once the other heroes showed up. During the commotion, Katsuki's fight left him standing next to All Might. Before Cementus could separate them, the muscular form of the number one hero evaporated into the skeletal one that was now visiting Midoriya. Izuku gave the scrawny man, All Might, a questioning gaze, as if asking for confirmation that it was really him. The symbol of peace bulked into his more well-known form before the boy. The disbelief and astonishment drawn on the boy's face were comedic. A hearty laugh bellowed out from the older man before his figure dissipated into the previous smaller one. Bakugo kept quiet as he explained to Midoriya the events that had led to his current state. All Might told the boy everything. From his master passing one for all to him to his devastating battle with All for One. Izuku interjected with some questions throughout his tale. The most important one he would ask, though, was after everything had been explained. Why are you telling me all this, All Might? If this information was leaked to the public, who knows what would happen? Midoriya's face was stricken with concern and confusion as he spoke. All Might gave him a light, airy chuckle. I want you, young Midoriya, to inherit my power. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime Theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you are interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now, with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. He spread his arms in a grandiose way as if to emphasize what he was saying. Izuku was in awe. Obviously, he would say yes, why wouldn't he? He had no doubt about his skills when it came to combat, or how powerful his quirk was. One thing still bothered him though. Why me? If it was solely for his quirk or abilities, then surely someone more experienced would be a better choice. All Might gave another chuckle at the boy's question. Young man, when we first met, you asked me if you could be a hero. You said you wanted to be the strongest hero and save everyone with a smile. To be honest, I brushed you off and gave you a rehearsed response that I would have given anyone. While I was watching over the entrance exam, I wasn't surprised to see you there. What did manage to surprise me was what you did during the exam. You kept going out of your way to help others who were struggling. When you were tired from saving others and defeating robots, you ran headfirst towards the zero-pointer when you saw someone in trouble. You inspired others to take action. From what young Bakugo told me, the same thing happened before I arrived at the USJ. Top heroes have stories about them from their school days. Most of their stories have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think. That was true for you, too, wasn't it? Izuku thought back. The time when Ichako was about to be crushed by the zero-pointer. Earlier that same day, when Tsuyu was about to be attacked by Shigaraki. He hadn't thought about what he was doing. He didn't have time to do that before his body started moving. His face changed from shocked to determined. He was ready. Yes. He confirmed what All Might had said, but it was more than that. He wasn't just telling his hero that his suspicions were correct. Izuku Midoriya was accepting the power of one for all. Katsuki smirked, turned his head away, and folded his arms. Don't think this means you're better than me, you damn nerd. I'm still gonna be number one, even without some borrowed power. There was a hint of playfulness hidden beneath his words. He wasn't making light of the statement or joking around. Bakugo was determined to be the next number one. He wouldn't lose to Deku, but that didn't make their rivalry any less of a friendly one. Happy with his choice of successor, All Might plucked out a piece of his ear and extended to Midoriya. Eat this. The flat tone of All Might's voice caused both of the kids to freeze. Izuku's face paled at the idea of eating someone's hair. After a few seconds of silence, Bakugo's howling laughter filled the room. The young freckle-faced boy tried to see if there was another way that he could go about obtaining All Might's power, but this was the most convenient method. Begrudgingly, he took the hair and forced it down his throat. It felt horrible. Toshinori explained that it would take a few hours for the power to kick in and advised the boys to head him before he took his leave. The next morning, Kaken and Deku got a message from All Might telling them to meet with him at Tagaba Beach. They arrived together just after sunrise and were encountered the skinny form of Toshinori Yagi smiling and waving them down. They met up amidst a piled-up garbage that covered the once beautiful area. It was impossible for others to see what they were doing or that they were there in the first place. After a quick greeting, All Might went straight into explaining the ins and outs of using one for all. Midoriya had trained his body since he was young, so he wasn't a rushed vessel who would suffer severe repercussions from using the quirk. Still, All Might wanted to make sure he understood how to use the power properly and spend an extended amount of time explaining it. By the time he was done, it was already high noon, and Bakugo was aggravated. There was no point in him wasting his time there if all they were going to do was listen to All Might instruct Izuku. He was about to leave when the pro-hero explained why he was needed there. He would be Midoriya's sparring partner once he was able to properly use the new power. They never got to that point though. The rest of the day was spent with Izuku testing his new quirk, figuring out how to control it, learning how much of it his body could take, coursing it throughout his limbs and finally figuring out how to stream it through his entire body. Considering the quirk he was born with already had a power-enhancing effect, it only took him till sunset to get his new power under control. He still didn't have complete control over one for all. He often strained his uppermost limits and had difficulty moving while it was activated. It would take a couple weeks of practice for him to have the amount of control needed. Katsuki had long gone on his own to train, using the stacks and mounds of junk as obstacles and targets for his own training. The group converged at their original meeting place once they were finished. Before they left, All Might wanted Midoriya to test one more thing. One for All enhanced a user's original quirk in addition to granting them super strength. They needed to know how it affected Izuku so they could adequately train. Deku activated his Sharingan, and a new design had taken over his eyes. He only activated it for an instant, enough to tell that his eyes looked completely different, but not long enough to really see what was changed. Something went wrong when he tried to use his quirk. Midoriya stopped breathing. Training Izuku's Sharingan wasn't an option, for the time being, it was too dangerous. The group went their separate ways, and Midoriya lamented over what happened. The next day, a new familiar face was in the classroom. Izawa explained the sports festival to the class, much to their surprise and excitement. All Might pulled Deku aside to talk about the upcoming event and what had happened the day prior. When the class tried to leave, they were swarmed by other students. Kaken made the situation worse for everyone with his rude comments. Thank you all for watching the video to the end.